of the review the forum that happened last week. I thought it was a good turnout. And we have, I think over 50 people attended.
59.
59. Okay, so there's the number. So I think Janelle had organized the comments in a document. So do you want to make that presentation, Janelle? Go over the comments?
Sure,
And
I'd be
up to revisions in the draft plan at this point.
happy to do so. So everyone in the committee, I'm hoping you've received those comments and saw it was organized page by page, and then a summary of comments of those that spoke during the plan presentation was also provided at the conclusion of my memo. So first and foremost, we'll start just doing the page by page review. So on the cover page, there was an addition of language, and I'll just read it verbatim. This affordable housing plan has been prepared to proactively position Cornwall so that it will be able to provide housing to all, regardless of race, age, socioeconomic status, nationality, ethnicity, differing abilities, and political and religious beliefs. And then the cover page was also updated. So because the October 20th plan presentation has occurred, it now just includes the mention that a public hearing will be held on December 8th with another opportunity for public comment. Thank you for taking time to read. It's about community. So now the plan has been titled the Town of Cornwall Affordable Housing Plan. So that's what I refer to as the cover page. And then we've also included It's About Community on the title page. The next page that follows, and then moving right along on page 3, I did take a quote from Gordon, what the first selectman presented at the plan presentation that just discussed who has lived in affordable housing units. And that includes Cornwall farmers, firefighters, both volunteer and professional, emergency medical technicians, school teachers, and artists. So I thought that was an important note. So that's now on the bottom of page 3. All of these have been emboldened. Once the committee discusses and votes on it, I'll take the bold away. Just for the legibility, I wanted everyone to be aware of what's been changed. And then furthermore, page 6, there is a discussion about how COVID has had an impact on the local demographic data. So that's in bold. They also acknowledged that most data sources didn't capture the effects that the COVID-19 pandemic had on the local population. I think a few times it was mentioned by commenters that the data numbers, the official data numbers that we pull from the census might not paint that full picture. So that's a sentence acknowledging that the COVID-19 pandemic has very definitely, as we've shared anecdotally, and also just with some school enrollment data, that the pandemic has had an effect on population coming into the town of Cornwall. On page 6 as well.
Wait, comment.
Yeah, please jump
Sorry,
in at any
I think
time.
we should, yeah. Could you change the colors? The one for all and the one for adults are so similar, you can't tell.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. And Anna, just to confirm, you're discussing the graph on page 6.
Yes, I'm talking about the graph on that.
Sure. I'd be very happy to do that. Change colors so they contrast. Great. Anything else before I move on? Oh,
Just one thing on Janelle, I just think it's important to nail this down once again. The stuff I looked at today showed the 2020 census had Cornwall at 1567, and the 2010 census had us at 1420.
great.
And so that, I think it'd be good just put those numbers in brackets just to highlight what those numbers are. Now, we do know that the population dipped in between the two censuses, but because those are from other sources, you felt it was confusing, then you're gonna have a dip out of different data, just to keep that in mind, because that's part of our narrative too. When a lot of this happened, before the pandemic, we were actually in a population decline. So the increase we've seen in the last while is more than made up for that dip. And again, that's extra information that's out there, but I don't think it really matters. I mean, it's other than, things change.
Well, the big question is, once the pandemic dwindles away, is the pattern going to go back to the former trends, which had been well established over a long period of time?
Right.
I mean, some people might look at this graph with this upward trend and say, oh, good, Cornwall's all set. We don't have any problems. I have actually heard someone say that.
And an increase in population doesn't necessarily do anything for the affordability of housing. In fact, the reverse.
Well, in this case, it definitely had a very not good effect on the
That's
affordability.
what I'm saying. Yeah. So
That's what I thought.
we're not all cheering about that.
There was a good comment from Dave Colbert that the COVID effects did not reduce the need for affordable housing. So I thought that might be a little thing in there, because I think that was spot on. That's sort of stuff. I mean, it changed things, but it didn't necessarily change the need for what we're talking about.
And actually, isn't it also true that because the houses were not vacant, there was less seasonal rental available for people?
We
Right.
say that, yeah.
Yeah. Just in thinking through all of these comments at this moment, what if we were to add a sentence about how the lasting effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, on local demographics has yet to be seen, and also to include that the COVID-19, something about how the pandemic did not, accentuated the need for affordable housing rather.
Right.
But to
That sounds great.
to include a statement of that effect.
Mhm.
Great. So that will be the lasting effect of COVID-19 pandemic. That will be on page 6 with the demographic data. Okay. Anything else from the group?
And again, I'm only focused on page 6, so I'm not gonna do this on page, but it just to be precise at this point, where it says the COVID pandemic led to a temporary uptick, it actually is, the uptick is stayed. So
Okay.
I just think it should, you can just take out temporary. It led to an
Great.
uptick. But the overall trend may suggest fewer children not fewer and fewer, but fewer in children of Cornwall over time. I mean, that's generally the population in the Northeast is, in the Litchfield County, is declining, especially in youth. So we don't want to sugarcoat it on the basis of what happened in 1 year. But for now, again, we're seeing some of the effects of COVID were not temporary, and people are, there's more people living here year round. There's with kids, that's for sure. And there's a lot of kids in baby carriages that aren't even in the school. We know the child center is full at this point. So,
That's great.
anecdotally, there's a lot of positive.
Could I read to you all the numbers for children under 5 from 1990 through 2019 real quick? 95 in 1990, 69 in the 2000 census, 45 in 2010. The American Community Survey put it at 41 in 2015, at 26 in 2017, and at 25 in 2019. We have yet to see what the 2020 census will say. And the numbers for working aged people 25 to 44 are equally dismal in terms of a steady decline over that time frame. I don't know how to communicate my concern about these trends. I get really worried when people start talking about how wonderful it is now with all these new people moved to town. We shouldn't be assuming that it's a permanent solution to problems that have been going on for 30 years.
Right.
That's
Well, I
all.
think if we make those slight changes, I think the optimism is there with the caution too. Or at least what we know right now is what we know right now, but also we're still concerned that the overall, as you said, the overall picture is tough.
Right.
So, great. Anything
Great.
else on page 6?
Janet,
Okay.
Sorry, I had to get my cursor up there. So I don't think it's appropriate to put it in this particular document, but I do think that it would give us, is fodder the right word, to fund a campaign to, bring more people to town, bring more children to town, bring more businesses to town and such. So I would like to, keep that in mind, because that's certainly something that has proven to be successful in the past. And, a well thought out plan, especially with somebody like Neil working on that, would be great, since he is also expert in that area. So we have plenty of homegrown talent that can help with this.
interesting.
And one thought I want to end on, not so much on page 6, but the annual housing forum is called out in the plan as an opportunity to revisit data. So I think that will become very important, just annually, the town to really truly look at, because again, data is such a picture in time, like a snapshot in time of what's actually going on. So that as part of the annual housing forum, the town keeps looking at this data, revisiting data and the same sources, so that over time can truly look at these trends and answer questions that we don't have today, such as the lasting effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on the local demographics.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you, Janelle, for working all that through, because I know that was commented on several times about trying to, include that. And I think that clarifies the COVID. So, Janelle, do you just want to take it away with your other changes to light?
Yes, happily. So to follow that, on page 8, the question did come through: how many hours a week is the housing wage based on? And provided that the housing wage came from Partnership for Strong Communities, which also came from, it's called the low income, I have to look at the exact source, but it's a number done annually by, I believe it's the Low Income Coalition, something along those lines. I'll have to dig to see that we can define that. I don't want to assume that it's based on a 40-hour work week. 40-hour work week tends to be pretty standard, but that was a question that came in, should the committee feel that it's important to address. And that's the margin of page 8, where it just defines the housing wage. Oh, here we go. It's the National Low Income Housing Coalition, which calculates that. And we were just asked about the calculation of that. I can look further into that. I just don't know if the committee feels that it's germane to.
It must have been a full-time job.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm sorry, should I be raising my hand before I open my mouth? Am I just asking everybody?
I'm fine with you absolutely jumping right in, especially as I run the Zoom and look at documents. I might miss a hand here and there.
Could you clarify when you say that the 42,000 is well below the median household income of 80,000? Could you clarify whether that's for a two-person household or a 4-person household? I think it makes a difference.
Oh, that's very, very important. Yes, that's the aggregate rather. So that would be the median household income across.
Oh, across the
All.
board for all
Yeah.
families.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's coming from the Partnership for Strong Communities, which pulled that from the community survey data.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that's
just
regardless.
Yeah, okay, never mind, then that's fine.
Yeah, that's not based on household size. So that median household income is 80,000 across the board on average in the town.
Okay.
Okay, and any other thoughts on page 8? I hear nothing. So on page 9, there was a typographical error. So I've added in, there are no long-term rental options consistently available in Cornwall. And then have also defined long-term as no less than a 1-year term.
You also need to fix the addition issue where you say 67% when the number is in fact 53. Under housing cost burdened.
Oh, I see.
For
11,
renters. Yeah,
the 11 and 42.
right.
Great.
One of our commenters pointed that out. I think it might have been Dave. And he was right.
That coming from the Partnership for Strong Communities was the aggregate of both renters and owners.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that's actually from Partnership for Strong Communities, which is cited at the bottom of the page. That number is directly from them. The graphs are misleading in that way. So I'm just thinking if it should be stated more clearly.
Well, you do say 30 for the owners, and that is added correctly.
I see.
Yeah,
Let
I
me,
think graphics should illustrate correctly if we're going to use them.
so why don't we keep that to reflect what the graph is showing rather than the aggregate? So to your point, Anna, let's change that number. So that's the 53,
Yeah.
right?
Good.
And it of renters. Perfect. Okay. Great. Thank you for walking me through that change. So before I move on, did I miss anyone's hand as I take notes? Okay. So next page. Page 10, there's been an addition. So it's down on the bottom of a shared vision about plans being consistent with one another. There's also the introduction and touching upon sustainability comments. So there's the sentence, Cornwall is a bronze level participant in the Sustainable CT program, which recognizes municipalities that incorporate sustainable measures into official planning documents. This affordable housing plan supports strategies that I could fix this wording, that support sustainability by encouraging reduced building footprints, increased housing density, shared amenities, and other energy efficient and climate resilient measures. So that came up, Anne Trowbridge brought that to light, and Ingrid did mention wanting to bring it into the plan. So that was added on page 10. I can actually make that wording a little bit better as I read it aloud. I don't like it. So Cornwall is a bronze level participant. I just don't like the use of support twice. So in this affordable housing plan encourages strategies that support sustainability by, there's an encouraging again.
You'll find it. You'll find the word.
Yeah.
We trust you.
I mean,
I
I
think
think-
we should say that support strategies that increase sustainability.
Increased is in the next line as well.
Okay.
Or
what if we-
it's not a dissertation. I mean, nobody's
Or
gonna pick on
even-
you that much.
Even just keep it simple. This affordable housing plan supports sustainability by encouraging reduced building footprints, increased housing density, shared amenities, and other energy efficient and climate resilient measures.
Fine. I'm
That's
all-
Okay.
fine.
Okay, thanks for working through that. And then page 11, no adjustments. We get to page 13. So we have heard from Melanie King. She's more than happy to have her quote. So that's been added back in. She did, and she was a resident of Cougaman Village and spoke about that during the May forum. So her quote has been added.
In the past, Janelle, she was Melanie with an I. I don't know. Check it out.
Thank
Yeah.
you for that, because I've seen it many different ways. And I want to get spelling right, especially of individuals' names. So I will confirm that.
I mean, that I'm talking high school, so she may have changed.
I saw it in her initial correspondence, so I'll verify that. And then we get to page 15. So this did come up amongst the plan presentation discussion about specific areas for multifamily housing. And what I had done was taken the language directly from the Plan of Conservation and Development, and it's truly up to this committee if you want us to adopt that language as well, or if you want us to actually put in language in specific areas. That was noted during the presentation, and then also I believe in a correspondence, a letter that we had received.
Say again, is it only the number of rental units that was suggested that be in specific areas? I mean, I think it's, having our plan mirroring the Plan of Conservation and Development is a good practice, since we say we're motivated by that. And it's up to the legislative body to figure out whether they want to limit it to specific areas, seems to me.
I think the people who made the housing portion of the Plan of Conservation and Development were pretty purposeful in not including the word specific area, just
Yeah.
because in Cornwall, it's so hard to build anything anywhere.
Mhm.
I think we thought, let people say, we'll put it here, and then we can hack and slash it out in a zoning hearing if necessary. But
Yeah, I agree with that.
idea of foreclosing any area before we even try, given how difficult it is to build, is a kind of not a good idea. I know it's a little bit provocative for people, but I think it was our intention not to have it be specific.
Anyone
People-
else?
Yeah, I agree with Jill. If and when we come to any legislative change, there will be public hearings, there will be opportunities to talk more about the whole matter of limited availability of appropriate land or lots in Cornwall. So I wouldn't worry about it right now. We can postpone worrying about it.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a proposal, an actual proposal for a building, then is the time to have people say whatever they want to say about where its location is.
Yeah.
Right. It was also mentioned in the plan, so on page 16, the following page, it's important to note that any zoning reform suggested in this plan would need to be officially considered and petitioned by an application or by the Planning and Zoning Commission itself. Any zoning changes will be subject to a public hearing that all residents can attend and provide input. So I think, as we mentioned at the plan presentation, that's an important step. And to Maggie's point, this is not a legislative document. So again, the legislative body would be the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right.
Great. So then page 16 as well, concerns about allowable square footage of an accessory apartment were raised, as well as allowing more than one unit per lot. And there has been a change. So the plan on page 16 now reads, this plan supports amending the zoning regulations to allow for the possibility of one detached and one attached accessory dwelling unit per property, parentheses, with a special permit, and to ease maximum square footage restrictions, which is a step beyond recent statewide land use reform measures. So that's intended to clarify, should a property owner wish to have more than one efficiency unit, that it would be subject to the special permit process.
But you haven't, the sentence is a little unclear about it. The new statute says you can have an attached unit by right.
Mm-hmm. It
And,
says you can have either by right.
right.
Either one.
But I think what I personally think is that we should follow that law and allow everybody to have a unit by right, but any second units, any further units should require a special permit.
I agree with that. I also was thinking, I mean, and again, this isn't really our business, but just thinking of it from a practical point of view, if we're allowing a second accessory apartment via special permit, practically speaking, it might be sensible if the one that was part of the existing house were the of right one, and the one that was in a separate building, the one that's apt to alter the landscape a little more, be the special permitted one. And also you can, it lessens the sort of police work involved, if you like, because
I think that's reasonable. I mean, it would be what I would recommend as housing chair. So, but you know, this committee can recommend anything it wants.
right.
The Planning and Zoning Commission will have to make their own decisions, but the committee can say whatever it believes in.
I think what we've got there, what's in bold now, is going far enough as an advisory document.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just not clear. It sort of leads me to think that we're saying that all accessory apartments will remain special permit.
Anna, how about this suggested language? This plan supports amending the zoning regulations to allow for the possibility of one detached or one attached accessory dwelling unit by right, yet also creates the possibility for more than one accessory unit by special permit.
That's better.
Why don't
Okay.
you not specify which one is?
Right.
Why don't you say one accessory
Okay.
apartment by right and a second one by special permit, without
Okay.
saying where they are? Leave
You
that
got
to
it.
P and Z.
That sounds great. Perfect. One unit by right, possibility for more than one by special permit. Perfect. So that's page 16. There were also concerns around.
Maybe we
Nice
should
to-
say the possibility of a second one by special permit rather than say additional ones. I mean, just so it's clear that
There's
the
only,
floodgates aren't thrown open,
yeah, you can't have
Great.
4 or 7 or something.
although you can have 4 apartments.
Yes,
In
you
an
can
old
have
building.
4 apartments, but
Yeah. And then just one other point that came up during the commentary period was concern around that square footage, easing the square footage restrictions. Because right now it just eases maximum square footage restrictions. The specifics were not discussed in this plan.
Let's leave it that way, because that's, again, that's a zoning change that they'll have to take to public hearing.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's page 16. And then there was on the margin, a bunch of different definitions that came up during discussion. So we went through multifamily, also the term middle housing gets discussed, which is a concept often talked about in planning circles around smaller scale developments. So that's your 4 to 6 units. And then we get into co-housing that was asked during the presentation. So that's been added as the definition of adaptive reuse has been in there. Accessory apartment gets clearly defined, and as of right gets defined. And those definitions are all pulled from the general statute. So Connecticut chapter 126 on land use.
Right.
Okay, perfect. And then that ends the comments just that are very specific to the pages of the plans that have been adjusted. And then the comments in general were just laid out in that memo so that everyone had a sense of who spoke and the content of what was said.
Right. I think it's a good summary of what people said, and I think Janelle did a good job with incorporating a lot of these comment suggestions when they weren't contradictory to the main part of the plan into the plan. We did get a really long public comment from Margie Purnell after we had distributed the other comments we received ahead of the meeting. Maggie, you spent some time going through there. Some of them were specifically Housing Corporation questions, and I think some of them have been addressed already in Janelle's efforts with some of the other things, such as, updating the COVID things.
Yeah, and many thanks to Maggie. Just at the onset of writing the plan, she helped me just get the Cornwall Housing Corporation in writing. So a lot of what's in the plan comes from Maggie's help.
Right. It's my thought overall that we don't need to expand this much more than it is. I got some comments that it was a lot of things for people to get through at this point, and I think things about the Housing Corporation are interesting and good, but we maybe not need to add them to this part. But are there parts of that?
I'd like to shorten something. Could I?
Right.
It was a Margie Purnell comment, and I agreed with her. We have a lot of repetition under our strategies because one strategy covers more than one goal. And I think we should simplify that page by just listing the goals at the top and all the strategies below, and it will wind up being a shorter page.
I mean, without assigning strategies.
Without
linking
assigning-
strategies to goals.
Correct. I just think it would read better. And
Okay.
she did make that comment, and I found it to be sort of clumsy and repetitive myself.
Great. No, that was problematic for me at times too.
Yes.
So Mag, you spent a good part of the weekend working through this commentary. Do you have any salient points you want to bring forward in addition before we
Well,
jump into the suggestions?
Some of Margie's things were sort of housekeeping, and those have been passed on to Janelle. I mean, pointed out as
Thank you.
housekeeping things, and she will pop them in as about defining terms and keeping them consistent and things like that. And she'll do those as time and space permit. And what else did I think? Yeah, I agreed that the part about the Housing Corporation was meant to just indicate how existing affordable housing was already in Cornwall. Margie suggested mentioning habitat, which that is another existing piece of affordable housing that does get counted by the state. So I think it would be good to have a one-liner in there saying that there is a habitat house in Cornwall. And we don't even have to point out that the reason there's a habitat house is because the Cornwall Housing Corporation gave the land to Habitat after the Hubbard family gave us 2 lots. We passed on one to Habitat. Let's see.
Just to comment where Janelle could fit that in. It could be at the
I think
bottom.
right under the Housing Corporation, I would say, just because it's existing affordable housing already in.
Right,
Cornwall.
Right, page 3.
Yeah, I'm looking at page 3, where it says with the current count, Cornwall has 36, and to make note that one of the scattered sites is Habitat House.
Habitat, yeah.
Mhm.
And Margie also mentioned getting the town plan and this plan on the same cycle, which is doable the next time around. It's something that's contemplated by the Public Act 2129 anyway. And I think we mentioned doing it too. Let's see, what else?
Maggie, just for my own understanding, the Habitat chapter, is it referred to specifically or is it known specifically?
Is it known that we have a Habitat house in Cornwall, are you saying?
Is it associated with a particular chapter of Habitat for Humanity?
I don't know about chapter.
Yeah,
It's our own Northwest Corner chapter, if that's what you mean. Yeah.
Heather knows the answer to the question.
it's Habitat for Humanity Northwest Connecticut is the
Yeah.
name.
Awesome,
Great.
thanks. Great,
Mhm.
thank you
Thank you.
so much.
It might be good also to say there's one house or something we would encourage more at any time
Right.
or something, just so it's not just static, it's
Right.
moving forward.
And they sort of cruise around the towns. What else? Oh, and Margie said things about why didn't we push harder for deed restrictions to make to have other things count as affordable, and that hasn't been particularly popular in the past. It's hard for people to mess up their title, but I suggested that we could do that where we talk about incentivizing the development of accessory apartments. We could also talk about thinking up ways of incentivizing people to make a deed restriction. It is, if I am reading the new legislation correctly, it says that accessory apartments created after January of next year aren't going to be counted as affordable. And because they aren't required to be affordable, so they're not going to be allowed to be counted as an affordable unit, which is sort of a bummer.
No, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And one of our strategies is to talk to the government and try to convince them to at least count them as half a unit.
right. But you'd have to prove that they were reserved for people at 80% or lower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
again, just given the high level of this plan, it's just a suggestion at that conceptual level.
Right. And she had something in there about owner occupancy. That hasn't, as far as I know, that hasn't been relaxed in the regulation concerning accessory apartments. One of the dwelling units where there is an accessory apartment has to be owner occupied according to current regulations, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That hasn't been relaxed, and from the PA 2129 standpoint, they're leaving that to the towns to tailor for their needs.
And she mentioned possible regulation of short-term rentals so that accessory apartments to just immediately get Airbnb'd. And
Yeah.
that's in our plan as well. Blah, blah, blah. Annual housing forum. She asked for an annual housing plan report, and I think the annual housing forum has all the hallmarks of a report. It reviews statistics, assessment of projections, analysis of planned feasibility, etc. And there were questions about the housing trust fund / community revolving loan fund, and that's out there as a suggestion. We don't have a blueprint for that at all. And every town that has one of those has organized it somewhat differently. And some towns' experiences have been more positive than others. And so I suggest we tippy-toe around that and get it right.
Yeah, Ron Goldstein is a good resource for that from Iron Bank. And then also Norfolk has set
Right.
up a very successful community revolving loan fund.
Right.
But the nitty gritty details of that have not been accentuated in the plan.
I'm just trying to think. Oh, I wanted to give one housing corp fact, because Margie had asked for a whole bunch of them, which some of them are not, I wouldn't even know the answer because they're between the management companies and the applicants. But sort of instead of counting sheep one night, I counted up how many people have lived in the parcel program since its inception, and counting men, women, and children, it's 51, which is
Wow.
pretty good. And all of the people in the parcel program lived in Cornwall beforehand. Of all the, I think it's like probably 17 or 18 households have moved through that program. They all came from Cornwall.
Okay, anything else on that, Mag? And we can go back to,
I think that's all. And obviously, if Margie wants more detail, I'd happily have a conversation with her. But I think that covers the main things that she was talking about.
Great.
That
thank
and what we've already talked about, because some of what she mentioned was also brought out in the forum itself and got discussed
Great.
today.
Maggie, thank you for looking at that so
Okay.
closely.
Okay.
and Anna had a comment about revisiting our goal strategy page to simplify, increase the readability. Anna, do you just want to repeat that, and maybe Janelle can, you can.
Did you get it, Janelle, when I was talking about it? List the
Yes.
goals at the top and the strategies down below, but don't necessarily match the strategies to the goals.
Sure, yes. And they are mentioned, so the goals are mentioned on page 14, which is
Yeah.
immediately preceding page
Yes.
15 that lists all
So
the
just-
strategy.
Take them off the left-hand side. You've got the goals again on the left-hand side. Just remove that then.
And it will just be a page of strategies.
Right. And that wasn't my comment. That was Margie Cornell's comment, and I just happen to agree with it.
Great.
Just to give credit where credit is due.
And then, of course, as things were repeated, just to simplify and make sure they're mentioned one time.
Right.
Yeah, that would be great.
And we have
Perfect.
room for another picture.
And the or further explanation, and also the more pictures, the brackets, the parentheses with the agency that would be responsible will be left in. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, just
Right.
checking with the group.
Yep.
Okay, great. And then the following pages, just expand on some housing strategies that are in there. So more explanation around zoning reform and the town state cooperation piece, and then ending on coordination, communication, and then finally our conclusion.
Yep.
Thanks,
Okay,
thanks everyone for the feedback.
yes. So any other thoughts, Will, Sana, about the draft updates, the forum, where we're at? I see Mac has a hand up, but are there any other thoughts on possible revisions, comments, incorporation? So Mag's hands up.
I thought of one other thing. I can't ever tell what pages we're on, but the one that has definitions of middle housing and multifamily housing and things like that.
Yeah.
One of the things that Margie asked is, what is attainable housing and does it mean anything outside of Cornwall? And I was thinking maybe we could take the
That's on-
attainable housing definition that's on the what does the town plan say about its housing goal page, and pop that in with the definitions of other kinds of housing to show that it is defined in the planning and zoning regs, even if it doesn't have a state meaning.
So to move it from page 5 where it currently is
Yes. to
and
move
put it
where-
on,
Yeah, because then you have all the different kinds of housings defined in the same sidebar.
the original thinking for that was just where the concept first gets introduced, it gets defined. So on page
I got
5,
it. Yeah.
attainable
I got it.
housing gets introduced because that was a recent amendment to the zoning regulations in cooperation with the Cornwall Housing Corporation. Does that make sense?
Well, I think it was put into the P and Z regulations around the free second cut, wasn't it, around that time?
Right.
So maybe just have a one-line definition on the definition page and leave it also on the second free cut page.
Yeah, you know, I think it's important that we make sure that everybody in Cornwall understands that when we're talking about a housing plan, yes, the main thrust is affordable housing because that's what the state requires us to do. But that we all understand that there's an additional kind of housing that Cornwall desperately needs, which is more attainable housing for people with what I call middle incomes. You know, people who don't qualify for affordable housing, but on the other hand, they couldn't possibly afford a place in Cornwall.
Right.
And we've talked a lot about those people, our children, the people we would like to hire to come work in our businesses. And so I want us to keep that concept out there. And that's what we mean with attainable.
Mhm. But
Great.
it's specifically described as people at 100% of county median.
Right. Well, yeah, because sometimes people like to have things narrowed down.
Right, and it ties into the parcel program definition.
Right. There you go.
So Heather had her hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there might not even be room, but I do think it's worth mentioning just as I speak with other social service directors in Northwest Connecticut. One of the unique things that Cornwall does provide is a lot of subsidy through our food and fuel fund to help people remain in Cornwall. That's both through direct payment to landlords and mortgage servicers, but also subsidizing through helping with other bills, helping with food to offset costs that can then be freed up to use for rent or mortgage. And I think that that's pretty unique compared to the other towns in terms of how generous we're able to be. So I don't know if that's worth mentioning somewhere, but I do think it's a highlight of Cornwall and how we do work to help keep people in Cornwall.
Cool.
I think so too. Maybe where
Yeah.
we talk about cost burdened.
Right, that's where I saw it, right at the bottom
Yeah.
of that page. Yeah.
Great. Let me flip to that and make note. That's a really good thought. Heather, you had termed it in a really good way at the presentation about how it's because they're taking away from other costs that they have more towards the housing costs.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think housing cost burden on page 9. Another thought of where it would fit really nicely might even be around the whole strategy of communication. Because I think more so it's about as a strategy truly to help people stay in Cornwall are these other programs and resources. So either in cost burdened or back on strategies, really up to the group.
We have room in strategies now if we've moved this, the left-hand side out.
Okay, great. And
I mean,
just
but I think Heather should call that. I mean, that's what she knows about the best.
I don't have any preference. I just think it's important to note it somewhere.
great. And Heather, do you mind just mentioning those programs by name, so I can jot that down really quickly to make sure I don't forget anything?
Yeah, do you want me to just send you an email right now?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll do it right now.
Yeah, thanks. Okay.
Okay, no, that was, plan's getting better and better.
Thank
Thank
you,
all for your
everyone.
comments, hard work. Janelle's doing, I think that she needs an extra pen after all this. This is great. So are there any other comments from the committee on this? What I would like to see is us agree that with these changes that Janelle has, that we are, that the report is ready to be submitted for the next step, which is a public hearing. And again, we have learned the towns don't even need a public hearing, but we have now had 2 forums and we'll have a hearing to get another round of input from people. But we have to finalize a draft for public review and posting before that hearing takes place. And again, we do on the front of this say that we are setting December, I believe it's December 8th, would be the hearing. So if we act on that now, we have to give 35 days notice, and we'd be well over that for December 8th, which gets us past Thanksgiving and before the holiday crush. So
I'll move it.
so that's sort of where I'm going with that. So we are a motion to move this document.
I move what Gordon said.
Well, he's gonna rephrase, maybe to move this with the changes agreed to today to public hearing, and leave the exact wording up to Janelle, you know, as long as we reference the changes that were made today based on the forum and people's comments, and trying to work it all into a workable document. I think is that it's getting better and better. So that's what I'd sort of say. So got that, Janelle? So great. So there's a motion on the floor to do that. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second it. Any discussion? Everybody comfortable with this move, going to another hearing? And again, I think the last one was good, and the comments are good, productive. And as we all know, the world is changing, the demographics are changing, and I think this, document does reflect things as we see it at this point. And as we've heard, the housing prices are projected to still go up next year. So
I heard by
we
by
will be,
20%.
by 20%. So I think, again, if you just, so the cost, all these numbers are going to go up by, I mean, the amount of people that are cost per, the amount of people that can't afford to live in Cornwall is going to go up by 20%. So, so I think a lot of these concepts are going to still be here next year. But I think it's timely to get this out to a hearing, and then we have something, to go to work on. I like the, some of these ideas as far as getting an advocacy group going, getting a revolving loan program going. All these are steps in the process of turning this around. So any discussion, any thoughts from the committee out there? Again, appreciate your patience and thoughts, expertise, all that good stuff. So hearing no other comments, any comments from Janelle?
Just communication to the group. So that would mean that there's no end of November meeting amongst the steering committee.
Correct. So
Thank you. Thank you all for all the hard work, especially getting to where we are today.
as fun as it would be to all meet right after Thanksgiving, December's time enough. So we need to vote on our motion, and then we can talk about next steps, because I still have a few steps to think about. So any other discussion? Last chance. All those in favor of cementing this? So this will stop. This will stop being a draft. This will be a plan for a hearing, I think. So anyway, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Will's on board. Sana? Okay, great, unanimous. Oh, it's good to see that. Yes, so thank you all. And so our next steps, we're getting down to steps, the single digits. So we set the hearing for December 8th, which again puts it into, gets us ahead of the Chronicle news cycle. And my thought is the Planning and Zoning Commission, now that the other advantage of having this done, now the Planning and Zoning Commission can opine about this at their November meeting, get another opportunity for people to discuss it.
No, not fully accurate.
Well-
Our job is simply to read it and decide whether it is consistent with the plan of conservation and development.
Correct, but
It's not necessarily going to be an opportunity to discuss it in detail and change everything.
correct, but your committee will have a chance to.
Oh, yes.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, but
what
I just don't want, I just wanted to be clear that the committee is not going to be
You're-
making suggestions for changes to the document.
You're not going to insert your favorite pictures, right? Got it.
Well,
So
we could
yeah,
try,
but
we might.
again, you might never know, but you have to save those suggestions for the hearing.
Yeah.
But again, it's good to have another group,
Sure,
be
sure.
involved.
Sure.
So anyway, that's happening in November. Then we have the hearing set for December. Then I would like to have this group get together one last time, and then they would be sent to the selectmen, and then it would get voted on. So again, it has another thing, but this is really, we're getting towards the end of the process. Does that make sense for you all to do that? And again, that's about where we're at. How about those next steps?
Gordon, just thinking ahead about that timeline, since you want this committee to reconvene, do you envision that being an end of December meeting or more so in the new year?
I envision that happening hot after December 8th.
Okay,
So I would say that because I don't want to be a humbug, but I would say that happening mid-December.
okay,
We put that on the selectmen's calendar probably for the following meeting or the first meeting in the new year or whatever. So that gets you into the new year with lots of time all of a sudden.
great.
So
Could
that's
I-
my goal,
could
is
I-
to get the work done by the end of the year.
Perfect.
Could I ask if the committee members had a chance to look at the Q&A that Ingrid and I worked on together? We were thinking that it might make a good insert for the Chronicle before the public hearing, without the colored photos of homes.
I think that might need some more work, and I don't even have a copy of it at this time,
Uh-huh.
but there were some things, I thought that'd be a great thing to put out, but I don't think we're ready to address that today.
Okay,
I'm not, I mean, I saw some things and I saw like some of the townhouse pictures, and I thought that probably having some Cornwall multifamily housing, which does exist, would be more appropriate
yeah, well,
pictures.
I said no pictures.
No picture.
No pictures, just the questions and the answers. We both tried to find appropriate pictures, and it's very difficult. So,
But there's something else like a tax increase. There's like some reference to increasing taxes or tax liability or something in there. It's one of the statements that I had to think about that, like how that. So I don't.
okay, that's fine.
I'm not ready for that. I'm personally, because I've spent the time sort of looking at the plan at this point. But that doesn't mean we can't put that out another time.
All right. I think we're going to need, the point is an effort at public education and public information with citations, because that was also one of the comments that was made somewhere along the way, that people would like to know where we get our data from, where we get our information
Well,
from.
Janelle included new
Yeah.
citations.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that what you and Ingrid did is really very helpful, but I don't think it's quite to this audience at this time, because we're not trying to sell affordable housing. We're trying to sell our version of what the state says we have to do.
Mhm.
And that's maybe more appropriate when there's applications coming up.
Okay, that's fine.
But I mean, that's one opinion. Other people might disagree.
It
I
was-
just think it might be overload. People might feel a little bit pummeled.
Right. The time may come when it's appropriate. And if it's not appropriate now, that's fine.
I mean, at some point, when this goes through, I mean, the town's got to establish an affordable housing committee, have
Yeah.
more things. So there's
Yeah.
plenty. There's
Sure.
plenty of,
I get it. It's fine.
Yeah. great. Appreciate your efforts. Any other thoughts, comments from the committee? Okay, so the last thing on our agenda is public comments. Are there any comments? I see we have a good attendance here. Any comments? Please raise your hand.
I
That,
see
oh,
Margie's hand is raised.
yes, Margie.
Hi, all. Let me see. Let's see if I can get my video organized.
I like your frog.
It's going to be, yeah. Oh, I like my frog too. Thank you all for going through all of that. I appreciate it. And again, I appreciate all the effort that you all have gone to. I think there are 3 little questions that I have as a follow-on. One of them was, it's one of the strategies that's on page 15, and maybe I missed this discussion. It's the 7th bullet. It's when you're talking about the possibility of utilizing that $60 fee that goes into the state. And I don't know whether you looked at that seriously, but I think there are other ways that you might be able to garner the funding that you potentially would be looking for to be able to help with affordable housing efforts. The $60 fee, the state's never going to let that go. So, I mean, you feel free to disagree, no worries. But I just thought I would reiterate that. I just didn't want that to slip through. The second thing was on the housing forum, the suggestion that maybe you write up a small report. It could be like a 1-pager or 2-pager each year. My thought on that was that, not everyone's going to be able to make the forum. And I understand that you might be going through all that, the detail and the data that might be associated with it, which is great. But how wonderful would that be to be able to use that information as an ongoing PR piece during the remainder of the year it's simply a thought. I know it's a little additional work for someone, but to put it all into one thing might be very helpful to the group for those people who are not able to either attend or are willing to, do things like attend housing forums, which sometimes people, I don't understand why they're not interested.
But that
And
could be
then-
even a chronicle insert.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we could commit to doing that ahead of the annual forum. Just again, one of the things we're trying to do is do benchmarks. So
Yeah.
we throw out some things as far as how many rental units came on this
Right.
year? What's the school population? How many houses were built? There's a bunch of information that we can put out exactly for people that can't make things, but just to hold us also accountable for dealing in data instead of our personal opinions, but also to have some benchmarks that we really look at on an annual basis. How are we doing?
Well, I agree. It's hard to get a handle on this data. And as you all have seen, it's variable. It's from different years. It's collected in different ways. So I have great empathy for all of you as you have tried to figure out, which data is the most robust and which you should use. And the last thing that is just a question for me is, will there be another draft for the public to review? If there's going to be a public hearing, I suppose you're going to be issuing a modified draft. And then, if I'm sure there won't be a single nit or edit that will be necessary, but, for those of us who are detail folks.
Yes, definitely easy answer. That's, following our vote, now we can have a final draft that can get put up on the website well ahead of the 35-day requirement for people to see ahead of the hearing. So that will happen.
Right.
We do our best to make it perfect, but this is ongoing.
Right. It's an ongoing thing, but it's great to get a good start on it. So thank you all. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts, comments? Hands up. Yes, Neil.
Hi, everyone. I don't know most of you, but I'm Neil Frownglass. I live on Scoville Road, 46 Scoville Road.
Doesn't look like it.
This is my other place in Philadelphia. That's Alfred's Alley. It's the oldest residential street in America.
Wow.
But I am here on Scoville Road right now, and I'm catching up on all of this, and I've looked at all the videos and read the reports and have talked to lots of folks. And I have an email with a bunch of questions. I don't want to take the time now, but I'll send it after this. I wanted to, make sure to hear this meeting and just let you know that I have an email coming just to educate myself and some questions that I've heard just talking to friends and neighbors in the community. So, more to come. I'm sorry, whoever has to answer my email, because there are a lot of questions, but I'm happy to connect with anybody, but just trying to get myself smarter and get the folks that, aren't participating in stuff, but certainly have a voice to get them smarter too. So I'll be sending that off, and also just wanted to thank everyone, because there's a lot of work that went into this, which I can tell, and it's really impressive. So big thanks for that. And Gordon, thank you for your farm stands, because I hit it up all the time.
Okay, well, there you go. A little advertising on the side. But anyway, thank you, Neil, for dialing in. And again, this is a work in progress. Somebody said we didn't get into this overnight, and we're not getting out of it overnight. We're in it for the long haul. What makes sense. We have a good track record of doing things that make a difference in people's lives. and in the community, and we're going to keep on trying to steal people's good ideas. So we're all open to suggestions. So thank you.
Great.
Anybody else? Any comments?
I see Nancy Berry, Gordon.
Nancy Berry,
Mhm.
Nancy.
Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. It was on, my mouse was underneath a group of papers. I do agree. This is monumental, just trying to keep up with all these pages. I just have two questions on things I've heard this today. I want to make sure that I heard them correctly. One is that accessory housing after January of 2022 will not be considered for affordable housing. I imagine that all the current accessory housing still remains in that number or not?
So I'd be happy to jump in. So that
Okay, jump in. No.
Yep. So that January 1 date comes from the new legislation. The legislation very clearly distinguishes that accessory dwelling units are not affordable housing units. And that's in the way that the state counts affordable housing units. So in order to count as an affordable housing unit, it needs to be protected in some way as affordable, and accessory apartments typically are not, given that deed restrictions would be what the state would recognize as the affordability component of an accessory apartment. They organically very often act as affordable units because they're very often priced below the market rate for housing. But again, the state is not currently recognizing affordable accessory apartments as affordable housing. And that's a concept that's suggested in the plan, that maybe they could in future years.
Thanks, Janelle. One other question here. The current population, I think I heard a number today, was 1,567 residents.
Correct.
And somewhere in all of these pages, I believe I read that we have 1,065 weekend residents. Is that correct? So that means that, there's somewhere around 500 or 600 people who this is our primary resident.
I'll answer that if I may.
Thanks, Anna.
We don't have any data now about how many weekenders we have. For the town plan, we looked at the December of 2010 census, plus some of the updates from the Census Bureau that they issued. They call that the American Community Survey. The data that comes out through that rely on a very, very small sample size of 2.5% of the population. And so for small towns like Cornwall, they're highly, they're not very accurate. But in the past, a now deceased statistician and demographer, David Grossman, was able to use a formula that he made up for how to calculate how many weekenders we have. And what you do is you take the number of vacant houses, which the census does count, and the current number is in, I think, the 400s. I don't have it right in front of me. And then you multiply that by the average number of occupants of any home in Cornwall, and you back into an estimate. So for example, right now, the average number of residents in any given household, according to the 2019 estimate, is 2.16. So if we have 400 some odd empty homes, then there are 800 something weekenders. It's a bit complicated and very inexact. So I'm not sure where you got 1,065, but that's not the case now.
I think also, Nancy, the whole idea of the weekender has sort of gone away. And because we've had this population increase without building any new houses.
Mm-hmm.
So what we know is people that are declaring this as their primary residence has certainly increased by 10 or 20% in the last several years. And then the whole idea of remote work and people going out back to the city for one day and being here for 6 days. Again, it certainly is changing and becoming harder to count as people's work is not Monday to Friday anymore. And it's not requiring you to be in a big office place anymore, which is both are big positives for our place. As Neil may tell you, it's a win-win. So again, but it's up to people to I mean, and really it's hard to tell, and it's sort of up to people to declare for a variety of reasons what is their primary residence at this point. But again, it's an exciting demographic that I don't think anybody thought was going to happen 10 years ago.
If I might just clarify, it's Margie responding to Nancy. It's on page 9, the quote that it's under there are currently no long-term rentals available in Cornwall, and it is cited as 1,065.
That comes from the town plan.
Right, a quote from the town plan.
Mhm.
What is the 1,069?
At 65, it comes from page, let me grab that. So that actually comes from page 5 of the town plan.
And where have you quoted it?
On page, not page.
Page 9, yeah, it's
9.
page 9.
I mean, a little hard, yeah. Again, I think the whole, try to get a definition on a weekender too. So that's,
Well, I'm the
Right.
one who came up with that number, so I'm going back to my original calculations. But I don't think we should waste time on this.
No,
here,
no.
Because it's very inexact. It's almost,
and it
No.
depends.
nobody should hang their hat on that number.
We're
and
not-
we shouldn't even include it.
Maybe we should take it out if it's so inexact.
That's what I'm thinking.
Sure.
There we go. Make it
There we go.
one sentence shorter. Thank you, Nancy. Anything else, Nancy?
No, but I can tell you from personal experience that we do have measurable information that our population has greatly increased because of the amount that is taken out to the transfer station.
Correct. We know that. But that's one of the data we'll put in our annual report. That we track. That in wine.
It may just be the Marie Kondo effect of the pandemic. Too.
That too.
That could be. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you
Thank
all.
Okay, anything else? Any comments? Okay, anyway, good to end a meeting with a joke. So anyway, thank you very much. So we're done for now, and thank you all for attending. And take care. See you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Janelle, especially.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Have a good
Bye.
good
Okay.
evening.
Thank you all.
See you.